And if you could put the link in.
For anyone just joining us on the recording now, the link is on the screen here if you want to watch the video that we just did, and it'll also be in the chat.
Anybody on Zoom? Hello? Any general comments as we get started? It's amazing. I want people on Zoom to be able to hear us. The transformation of man is amazing. From somebody full of hatred to Muslim. That is some transition. To be the president. Yeah.
You know, there's an expression that I've heard all my life: love somebody to death. And this makes sense to me in this context, because he was absolutely loved to death as his old person into a new person. And, you know, for the first time, that expression actually makes sense to me. It's a wonderful story.
Amazing. Was there anything about it that you thought was unusual or that you found different from
the fact that he joined the Marine and he had a record of using drug and selling drug? Doesn't the Marine Corps do a background check at all? No?
He didn't say he was convicted, he just said he did it.
Oh. Okay.
That's a possibility.
It's also a possibility. He did it before Vietnam, and they probably didn't. They wanted the men.
Well, the one thing that I thought when I first saw this is that I've never seen a film about redemption and that sort of thing from a faith other than Christianity. I mean, and yet I'm sure that this happens, you know, people who belong to other faiths, they must get some sort of positive sense out of their religion or they wouldn't be whatever it is they are. But I thought it was really amazing because I just had never seen that before or thought about it.
Well, we never see that image of Islam, you know, in anywhere. Newspapers and movies, they're all killers, they're all destroyers.
Yeah, I've definitely heard though that Islam has, certainly in bygone years, and I assume it's still the case, had a very strong presence in the U.S. prison system, where they're reaching out to people to help them transform their lives. So I've definitely heard stories of that sort, particularly African-American Muslims. So there's definitely a very substantial ministry of that sort in Islam in the U.S.
I was just struck so much as I think about this that it wasn't so much Islam as love. It's love that transforms our lives, whether it comes through Christ, through our Christian religion, whether it comes through Islam, whether it comes through whatever. It's the love that makes you feel one with the people and part of a family. And that's what transforms people. It's a human condition. She's a love. You know, it's a human condition, no matter what religion you are or not.
Well, I thought that too. And the thing that amazes me about it is when you encapsulate what Jesus taught us, it was always love. I mean, that is really the foundation of everything. Sheila, did you want to say something?
Yeah, this was a wonderful presentation, and it reminds me of the person that I call my Chinese sister, who was a Fong, who was a student that lived with my parents when she got here. And my father went to go pick her up at the airport, and he's a African-American, dark-skinned African-American. And she had never been around an African-American. So she was so frightened the first night. Actually, I guess she figured out a way of not spending the night the first night. And then if I've got the story straight, I could have her come tell it one day. But the first night that she stayed in my parents' house, she locked the door and put a chair underneath it. And she was just absolutely petrified. And well, what is this? 30 years later, I guess, when my parents stood up for her parents under the Jewish chuppah, if I'm pronouncing it right, you know, I considered that official enough that she's my Chinese sister. But it goes back to the poem that I have. On my 16th birthday, I got a book called Something to Live By. And there's a poem that I have lived by. Many of you have heard it before, but it's, if I knew you and you knew me, as each one knows himself, then we could look each other in the face and see therein a truer grace. Life has so many hidden woes, so many thorns for every rose. The why of things our hearts would see if I knew you and you knew me. And I've kind of lived by that and feel very, very lucky that I grew up in a home where people from all cultures and all religions and all races and all occupations and everything were welcomed on a daily basis. We hardly ever had a dinner table that didn't have someone from somewhere else. And I'm really thankful for that. Anyway, enough.
Thanks for sharing. Anybody else?
I think it would be.
Oh, sorry.
I was thinking about if someone came to this church someday, one day, that was kind of universally despised, or by a large group of this church, what our reaction? I mean, or we feared that person, or they had tattoos all over their body and a mohawk haircut. Would we be welcome?
Yeah, I think that's a good point. I mean, how we could emulate what they did, because what they did was transformative.
I would just like to say I thought it was wonderful to see American Muslims portrayed, you know, aside from the way they were dressed, just like completely ordinary people and being so loving and welcoming. When I was in 8th grade, my father had a Fulbright to teach in Lahore, Pakistan for a year. And I went to a Pakistani government girls' school. And the people I met there were wonderful. They were really, really nice girls. Just like anybody you would meet anywhere. And so it's always been so hard for me to understand the universal vilification of Muslims in this country, which is so incredibly prevalent. And that's why I like it.
I think it's also a message to us of how we tend to limit God. You know, we think that God is going to work in certain ways or whatever. He's only going to work in a Christian church. He's only going to work, you know, especially a lot of faiths don't accept anybody else, but unless you subscribe to all of their tenets. But, you know, here, this is a case where God worked, you know, what I would consider outside the box. To a Muslim, this probably happens all the time, but it's something that, like I said, we haven't seen. But how could we as a church, like Rich said, how could we as a church be that kind of a transformative church? So what if a gangbanger type person came and showed up on Sunday and you're really scared? I mean, some of them, as you know, are kind of terrifying. How would we respond?
I kind of hate to bring this up as we're speaking about this, but I think I've said it to ADG before. Ron and I have been with the church now for 50 years. And I've brought many relatives to the church, and I've had many relatives that have said, there's something about our church that is not welcoming. And I don't know how to explain it. They didn't seem to really be able to put their finger on what it was, but none of my relatives have ever thought of really kind of joining. And many go long distances to churches. So I think it's a very valid question to ask what we can do, because I can't answer the question, but I can tell you the reaction that I've had from friends and relatives. So as I said, I can't answer the question, but I think it's an extremely valid question and we need to figure it out.
Well, I think the question too is what can we personally do? Because the church really is a collection of all of us. So, I mean, personally, are there things that, you know, you might think of that you can do at the service or whatever to welcome someone like that?
I'm not saying this because I want to get a good dinner tonight, but I would send out a rose. Being a model, we're generous and welcoming to pretty much everything.
Sure. Well, now I can't say what I wanted to say.
We'll give you a beat and then you'll be able to say what you have to say. Well, I do think that's true. I can say in all honesty, I came to this church for I think a year before anybody spoke to me. I mean, not that people were rude, you know, but I didn't really talk to anybody. So, I mean, I think that's one thing that we could maybe do is just make a point of recognizing someone or seeing someone we don't know and making a point of saying hello and welcome.
I think the greeters table is very good because already Ron and I did a greeters table in September, I guess it was. And one of the ladies, one of the couples that came, she's been very involved since then. She's the one that's putting out, I should have Ron tell this because I don't know all the things that she's doing, but apparently she's on the extension board or doing extension work for us, upgrading our extensions. So greeters, you know, I think our church tends to be rather cliquish, and I'm guilty as everybody, getting down to coffee hour and seeing people that I know instead of walking up to people that I don't. Half the time I'm embarrassed because I think if I say something, they may have been here 15 years and I don't know. What? What was that?
That's very true, Sheila. I welcomed the Huguenots the first time I tried to talk to somebody I didn't know.
I think that I'm glad to know the welcoming table does that, and I had the same experience, and the couple just joined the church. Not because of me, but I think that somehow they did feel they were very felt very welcome that day, and so they were there. But my mother came here many years ago, and she left, and she said, "Well, I don't think there's anything spiritual in that church."
Oh.
And that was the feeling she got. That's just what she felt from one visit. And she was coming from a Southern Baptist background, so I might have had something to do with it. But I don't want to monopolize this, but I do want to say that the experience that we had with Muslims here were have all been so great. We had the opportunity to go over to the mosque near SC one day, and how welcoming they were. And then with the Pacifica, it was the same thing. And in both of those instances, from the first time, they had food. They had a table of food. And I think that must play some part in breaking down barriers, because and our donuts made that. In fact, I think they do that, but I wonder if we could do something greater than that to reach out to new people. And I think that if somebody came in with tattoos, we'd all be scared to death. But I do think we would be hospitable. And I don't know if it would go any further than that. But I can't see people doing anything mean. I think we would welcome.
Just as an advertisement, next week, I believe it's Saturday, we're having the Thanksgiving dinner with Pacifica. So if you haven't signed up, please sign up. They can use some volunteers, but also we'll be sharing dinner. Vegetarian Thanksgiving, so just FYI. And Sylvia's coordinating this, so.
But she won't be attending.
No, Sylvia cannot attend, but other people will be, so we'll be working on it. So to some degree, we'll be dealing with Muslims there, but I'm just thinking kind of in our community, you know, what could we do? Because if these things are our reputation, then, you know, and I don't mean it as a means of beating down the church by any means, but just thinking about ways we can even be better.
Well, we had to kind of be honest and real. Just this last year, I think it was, that small church in Orange County, very small church, where the guy came in and shot up and how he killed so many people. And the one man who stopped him and went after him, he was killed by the guy, but he saved so many lives. And it was a small church, and that guy happened to be a doctor. If you remember, it was in the news. So we have to kind of get real. If somebody weird showed up, we all kind of would be tense a little bit, because, I mean, just turn on the news. I mean, all the mass shootings. So we can't be foolish. That doctor was, God bless that guy. But it's all, we're not all over the news. So it's a funny, it's a iffy thing.
I think, though, we make assumptions about who might shoot whom that maybe are not. If we're welcoming to everyone, I mean, yes, the man in Georgia, was it, or Atlanta or whatever, that sat in on the prayer meeting, was welcomed in and then killed people. Things like that are going to happen. They're on the news. It makes people nervous. And then we become not welcoming, when that is one incident out of how many millions of church meetings per week maybe welcomed in a stranger. So one of my things is I think the news focuses so much on the negative stuff that we tend to believe it is a normal occurrence. Even the school shootings, even if it were one per day, think of the number of schools, millions of schools, where it's not happening and people are welcoming people, and maybe they're preventing things from happening by being very welcoming. I don't know.
Well, two things. I was struck by the woman who, the Islamic woman who said, I could tell that he was hurting so much. And I think that you really need to put yourself out to be even nicer, perhaps, to people that seem to be hurting and in need. And she was able to see that, and I thought, wait a minute, that's the New Testament. That's ours. But this woman really knew all about seeing through an exterior. I also was wondering, it was unclear to me when the man, what's his name, decided to dispose of his kit. I don't know that it happened right away. He might have kept that destructo bomb kit for days, weeks, but all that I know from the documentary is that it said, oh, but I had already destroyed that. I'd already taken it apart. But did it happen like right away? I don't know.
Yeah, he said it took him 8 weeks though to turn around, but whether he got rid of it or not, I don't know. Okay. Well, one other thing that I was thinking about was the institutionalized hatred. I mean, obviously when you go to war, the soldiers really have to hate the other side, because you can't send somebody out to kill unless they feel that it's justified. And obviously this person is dealing with the ramifications of it. But, we all grow up in areas. I'm thinking, what kind of things in our lives have we learned to hate whatever people, whether it be, Jews, Blacks, Muslims, whatever. How have we in our lives been taught, inadvertently or directly, that this person is a threat? I don't know if anybody wants to talk about that, but I just thought that's one of the things that this made me think about. Any thoughts?
Well, I don't know if this is exactly what you were thinking, but when I was in college, there was a Japanese girl who wanted to pledge our sorority. And there had never been a Japanese girl in any of the sororities on campus. So this was a big deal. And the fear was of the whole community, I'm talking about the whole sorority community, that if we pledged her, no one would ever pledge again. Interesting. Well, we persevered, I want to tell you. And we pledged her, and she was fabulous. And in the end, I think we took the war.
Anybody else have any stories like that? I think that's kind of the basis of this church, that when you bring people in, things are better.
Well, since many of us had white hair, gray hair, we lived through World War II as kids. I remember Japanese being depicted with kind of eyes and love teeth and pretty horrible people. Just being depicted. They didn't look at Japanese, real people. And that's a part of making your enemy look, portraying your enemy in the worst light possible to justify eliminating that person. So, Happy to hear.
Kind of like the Jackson Brown song, they sell you, you know, your wars like they sell you laundry detergent or whatever. They have to do that. Any other thoughts on this? I mean, how can we as individuals change our own thinking about people or things or be more open? Any ideas?
I don't have any ideas about that particularly, but what I'm saying is that I have definitely noticed an improvement in this church lately, where I do go to coffee hour and I do see people going around and talking to different people, that they aren't just their best friends. And also I'm thinking about you getting us involved in the reading for the Jewish celebration. And I've been in touch with the cantor from that church, as I know when it's in I know her, and she said that it's talked about there. They were amazed that all of us showed up and that they appreciated it, especially with what's going on with all the negative stuff. So I do feel very hopeful. And I don't know if it's just what it is. Maybe it's the new minister, or I don't know. But I do feel like there is an uplift in this church. I agree.
Well, speaking of Jewish, I remember when Rabbi Kahane would come and give talks here. You know, he'd have his Bible and then we'd have our Bible. And he would compare stories and stuff. And I just love that man so much. And I wish we had that connection now where we could have somebody coming from the temple. Our churches now embrace the Muslim community, but I hope to, really bring somebody in that we can have those kind of talks again, because I sure miss them.
I think part of the delay in that is because the rabbi has been under treatment for cancer for almost the last year. So I just talked to Pastor Mike last night, and he said that he had not really been able to talk to the rabbi, but that is definitely something that we want to do. The other thing we might do is expand to not just CTJ, but to some of the other Jewish synagogues in the area, because Redondo Beach has one, So
The Thanksgiving interfaith meeting is going to be held at a Mormon church.
No, it is.
Yeah.
Next. Oh, okay.
I think that's really interesting. I don't know that they've ever been part of the interfaith.
Is it the one down here?
Torrance.
Oh, it's Torrance. Wow, what a change. That's kind of.
And what day is it? Is it on a Tuesday again?
Yes.
It's usually the Tuesday before Thanksgiving.
Because I used to think it was on Wednesday, and I took my mom last year, but it was the wrong day, or maybe it was the year before. So
they changed it because so many people were traveling out of town to visit relatives on the day before Thanksgiving. And then
I can understand why they changed it, and I didn't pay that much attention. I guess I just thought I knew when it was.
Well, I think the beauty of the growth of that program, if you want to call it a program or a service or community gathering, whatever, is that there are now a fewer number of churches that can house the event because it has grown so much.
So much.
That's really wonderful to see. And to sing the songs and hear the joint choirs singing something together and stuff. It's a wonderful service all the way around.
It really is. It's really one of the things I think that has been a highlight for me from our church. We used to call it Thanksgiving Eve service, so it isn't Thanksgiving Eve. Also, Mary and I talked about getting a group together on maybe a Tuesday. She may have some more dates. Anyway, to go see Till together. Movie tickets are $5 or $6. I don't remember what. most movies on a Tuesday. And I went to see it and called Mary and said, we should do this as an ADG thing. And maybe we can find if there's any interest. I was going to do a sign-up sheet, except I'm not there.
I just hope these interfaith activities during Thanksgiving, during Christmas, and beyond, that they're not in the preview, so we know what, when, where, so we can attend. So whoever's leading event X, please, interfaith event X, please announce it.
Oh, I like the idea of going to the movie.
We're also talking about going down.
Somebody in the back.
Yeah. Going down to the Family Promise Coffee Shop as a group, which I think would be fun and support their endeavors.
In response to your question about whether someone with tattoos came, how they would be received, I have a daughter who is covered with tattoos from head to toe. And she does come here occasionally, usually it's Christmas. But so if you see her, you'll have a chance. Because I had to go through the reactions myself as these tattoos appeared and search my own heart as far as, this is not what I want for you, but how do you, how I feel about it.
Does she regret having that?
No.
You think she will?
I don't know. It's hard to say. She's had a difficult life. She's adopted and went through things when she's adopted and went through things when she was young. And came from a mother who had drugs. And so there are reasons for the way she is, but still it's hard to fit in. But she feels good. Some people who are out in public, people will comment to her about how good they look and makes her feel better. It's, I don't know, it's hard to explain.
And how many of us regret things that we did in our younger years?
Well, I think we're getting close to the end. Just a couple things. I appreciate your feedback. If you felt like this was interesting to do as a discussion, I think personally I enjoyed it. And just as a promo, in 2 weeks we're going to be doing another one similar to this about gratitude. I hope people will come. And the other thing, if you've got any ideas for outreach types of things like we did with the Jewish synagogue or whatever, say something. Either you can talk to me or you can talk to Deb Dupree or people who are on the extension board, because we want to be out, reaching out to people. We don't want to be insular. And, I think that will make it better for all of us. And I think this is kind of an example of just how much it improved his life, just coming from the community. And we, as Christians, we can do that. We could be present the same kind of love and compassion and understanding. And one other thing that we didn't really talk about, and we're kind of running out of time, is the issue of, how do we deal with veterans when they come home? Because I never thought about the way, you tell them to hate Muslims and then you bring them home and expect them not to hate Muslims. But I don't think anybody deals with that. That's just something we can think about and how we deal with returning vets. Any other comments? Oh, next week.
Next week, the speaker will be Sandra Bryant, who's the executive director of All People's Community Center, which is right south of downtown LA. She's been here before, about 5 years ago. It's a really interesting community center that has family and youth services. Has a big impact on that area of Los Angeles. And I think they'll be here. They just celebrated their 80th anniversary of the organization. And she's been there probably 30 years. She grew up in the organization as a child went on college and social work school and came back and worked there, and now has been the executive director all this time.
Wow.
One more question here, or comment. Okay. All right. Well, thank you again for coming. We really appreciate it. I hope you found this meaningful. You can find this video on Netflix or on the New Yorker Magazine website. And you know, I think it's worth sharing. So anyways, have a great day. Go out, be the church, share the love.
Thank you, Mary.
Thank you.
Thank you. There was an article about the film on CNN.
What's the name of the film?
Stranger at the Gate. Stranger at the Gate. That it showed up to the beginning, or actually at the end.